Please.
Okay, as a moderator of the next session, I would like to start our next panel. And ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to invite our panelists, successful women in tech who are making their mark on their own tech communities. So please welcome Marjolein Oosprong from Praise. Marjolein is there. Please come here and take a seat. Praise, if you was yesterday here, is a partnership for advanced computing in Europe. And Marjolein is has the communication and outreach activities for Praise. Welcome, please. The next panelist is Kristina Lillimäes from Estonian National Research and Educational Network, EENet. Kristina is the head of the EENet. Please. And Tiziana Ferrari is the technical director of EGI Foundation. The same who was yesterday here knows that it's coordinating body of EGI, the federated infrastructure set up to provide advanced computing services for data-driven research and innovation. You can select your seat where do you want. And our panelists from Moldova are Anna Chirița. I have seen Anna, please. Executive Director of the Moldovan Association of ICT Companies. In the same time, she coordinates the development of ICT Excellence Center in Moldova project. You know very well, I think it's TechWill. And we are waiting, I think, Donna Shkola. Yeah. Maybe she will come, the founder of the NT Association, which significantly contributes to the development of ICT in Moldova, as well as, maybe you know, the co-founder of Generator Hub, easy-to-access co-working space where startups can obtain experience, advice, and mentorship, maybe due to that some complicated situation with arriving here. Maybe she will join us. So thank you very much for that you agreed to participate in the panel, and let's start. Can we make one more microphone? Okay. Let's start our panel with key question we included in our description. So what are the current barriers facing women in IT sector? Marjolein, can you please start?
Okay, should I open the panel? Well, I think the IT sector is not that much different from other sectors where women face barriers. And I think all of us know many of the barriers they face. Women are still taking the majority of childcare and housework, so they're usually the ones who start working part-time or take a longer break. Sometimes, I mean, they have to take a break when they get pregnant and have a baby. There's no choice. So a lot of women still do that by nature and are happy to do so. But especially in tech and science, this has a long-term impact on the rest of their career. So they, as in science, it's about publication, it's about making science, making project proposals. If you take an extended break, it breaks your flow of output, let's say. This is a big barrier in, at least in the sector in HPC where I work. On the other hand, it doesn't mean that this cannot be a barrier that we can overcome. But I guess we will talk about this later.
Okay, the same question to you. Thank you very much. The same question to you, Kristina. What do you consider the main barriers in IT sector for women?
I'm going to take it to from another point of view. I think the women and the way we think is one of the biggest barriers. That we don't trust ourselves that we can make it actually in this sector. This is something that I see that should change. But we need to. It's not a man's playground anymore. So. To be more confident, to believe in ourselves that we can have this career in this field. I think this is also a key element.
Do you agree that usually women underappreciate their possibilities and their achievements?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, thank you. Tiziana, the same question for you. What do you consider the main barriers in IT?
I think this changes a lot depending on the country in Europe, in my experience. So I am Italian of origin, and this is my experience. When I enrolled as a computer scientist student at university, 10% of the students were female in the course. So apparently computer science was not very appealing to the young women coming to university. I think this has changed a lot in the last 20 years, but a very interesting initiative that I've experienced with my daughter is that there are specific programs at school which essentially allow both boys and girls to experience science, go to labs, try out ICT, and I think this is very important to break cultural barriers which tend to seclude women into the human sciences area, and essentially implicit models you have around you which push men more into the ICT sector and the technology sector. So sometimes it's also about the society, the school, the education system, and also the parents to allow girls at early stage to get into this world, understand it and appreciate. So sometimes knowledge is very important. I think this is at a very early stage in the studies. What I've experienced later on, I think this is what Marie-Elaine said as well, as career evolves in the ICT sector, because of the changes, people are demanded to travel a lot, to be committed if they are scientists, and this can become challenging for women, especially in societies, for example, Southern Europe, which still delegate family care to women. And then this becomes possible only if, as a woman in your career, you have a very supportive family around you that allows you to travel and to be engaged. So, for example, in research infrastructures, almost none of the directors in Europe is a woman. This is quite often a problem when you have to have panels like these. There are no women at all to show up. So I think this changes a lot. But in many technical conferences, I see lots of women and young people, young women. So I think this is changing, and it's very positive.
Thank you. The same question to you, Anna. What are the main barriers, and especially maybe you can show us our local
example.
specific.
Whatever the other ladies have already mentioned probably are still valid. When I went to computer science, I didn't think about that women don't have the chance to do it. I rather wanted to choose something very mathematic or physics or things like that driven. So it's about what actually girls want. I would agree that somewhere parents and teachers somehow praise the women or girls to choose a non-ICT career just because it's easier, not just because they cannot do it. But I would not put it that it's not possible and that there are barriers. The barriers probably lay somewhere in the girls themselves, that they think they would not succeed. I see a room full of men, that's fine, why not? It's a matter of what you want to choose. In the end, it's not that you need to choose a career because of, but because you like it. I had a different example in my life. For example, I chose the career, but then in my third or fourth year of studies, I actually did not want to continue, just because everybody told me I would be a programmer or a coder. And it's also a matter of exploring what type of possibilities you have in the ICT career, because you can be a scientist, you can be a coder or developer if you want, you can be a designer, you can be whatever, and you can still be in a QA or I don't know, a project manager in the area of ICT, and you're still in the ICT sector. So it's a matter of a career orientation in general and trying different things. I would agree that it's very important that girls try. I have experimented with my own girls. I can tell you that my eldest doesn't like IT. But I did experiment.
What do they like?
she likes things. She likes vlogging. That's another thing. But in the end, she doesn't really like. She understood that she doesn't like it, and it's fine. You don't need to push for it. As long as they like it, you encourage them. If they don't like it, you don't just give it to them because they, oh, a career in ICT is so nice. It is nice, but you have to. In the end, you'll live all your life with a career and with your career, as you live with all your family. So you kind of need to be happy with it. So whatever you do. The barriers are truly to be 100% sure that that's what you want to do, to me.
If you started with that question about role models, so I have, maybe you can take another microphone, Marilyn. Take it. Yeah, we have two of them. While you consider or maybe not don't consider important role models for young girls to join this sector, and maybe what were women who inspired you to join it?
I honestly have to say I have no role models. No women, no men either. I never really had the ambition to follow in someone's footsteps. But what I can say about role models, I think, personally, I'm not too fond of the word role model. I would like to just call it examples, because I think girls can also take a good example from a man making a career. They need to know what is fun about it. Like you said, if they need to find out if they like it. They don't necessarily need to have a woman showing them that they can like it. And I say this mainly because I mean, my background is in communication, so I write about these things. And I've noticed, for instance, that when I get a text about a successful woman in science, it quite often has a phrase like, she is very successful at combining a high-level career with family life. Nobody will say this about a man. Nobody. I have never seen an article where this is said about a man. And this is where I get a bit uncomfortable with the word role model, because it's, at the same time, it gives a good example, and at the same time it confirms a stereotype.
So you don't think we need that a bit of support for that girls to show that they can do that?
I think all kinds of examples are necessary for girls to show that they can do that, and that it's fun to do it, and that it's a choice, it's a completely free choice for them to choose such a career. And the examples can come from both men and women. I don't necessarily need to have girls look at other girls to follow them.
Thank you. Then, Christina, maybe you have another answer on this question. Why you consider the role models are important, or maybe not so for women to join this sector?
I have to say that I agree with my fellow speaker. I don't have any role models that I would kind of bring out, and I think also that if something is doing good job, it doesn't matter whether it's a man or a woman. Role models, if somebody wants to have some or has some, can be from both gender. It should be the work that is evaluated, not the gender, at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you. Tiziana, what is your opinion?
I think models are very important for children when they choose their career, and again, I think this is a bit depending on the country. I think in the Nordic countries, what you see around you as a society is different. For example, fathers are obliged, I think, in many countries to have parental leave, so really the involvement in family life is equally balanced. This is not the case.
Is this correct regarding your countries?
I know for Finland, for example, this is compulsory as far as I know. But yeah, for example, in Italy, parents are not equally treated when you raise the children. So typically it's always the woman who is taking care of the family, and that means that as a girl you grow up, you tend to copy the models, your mother, your network. And I think this is why having programs which increase awareness of the chances and the opportunities, like my colleague on the left said, is very important for boys and girls equally. And these provides mechanisms to have a free choice and to understand all the options you have around you, and also to break models you find in society.
Mariela, what about that experience of coordinating the activities in your country? So,
well, I can only comment from the Netherlands,
Yeah,
where I'm
yeah,
from,
yeah.
and from Belgium, where I live. And even though there are good arrangements for fathers to take leave, it's definitely not at the same level as the leave that the mothers get. So there's still this push for the mother to stay home longer and break her career. And in the Netherlands, I think those people who know a bit about Netherlands know that we have the highest percentage of women working part-time. We have a lot of opportunities for women to work part-time, and people take advantage of this. They want that. They make the work-life balance better in that way. But it's still the women doing the part-time. So to me, on the surface, this looks like, yeah, we are growing towards being equal between women and men, taking care of family, etc. But when you look a little bit deeper, it's not there yet.
I would like to comment from my own experience. I went back to work when my third child was 9 months old. So I actually started to work again when she was 4 months old, and then full-time back when she was 9 months old. Actually, it's possible. It is possible if you have a really good support system. It doesn't mean that you have to stay in Estonia, you can stay home for 3 years with the child.
do you have that support from your government, from your state in Estonia?
We get paid leave for 1.5 years, and then for the other part, then you can either, if you have funds or somebody is supporting you. But for me personally, I would say that it's possible if you want to. So it's, again, in my opinion, a lot of the things, the barriers are inside our heads, nowhere else. If we try to work on those there, then things would get better. But this is somehow I feel like it's also always an excuse in a way for women that I have to be there for the children. Maybe I'm a bad mother if I'm not there. It's not. If you are good, if you are there with your children, be there. And if you do your work, do your work. So from my own experience, I can say that I don't see actually. I didn't feel that I needed to stay home with the child. I didn't feel the pressure from, let's say, from the society, because this was my choice. I make my own choices. And that's, for me, as simple as that.
It's important. Anna, regarding you said about role models, but what do you consider in our country? What is here? What about you can tell about the distribution between men and women and maybe state support? So what is your experience here?
Okay, so first about role models. I agree that it doesn't really matter whether it's a man or a woman as a role model. I agree that it's not necessarily that it's actually an IT role model. Well, role models define ourselves in a better way, let's say, in general. Either it's a mother or a father or a scientist or an expert or an artist or whatever. But what I discovered, we launched in February this year, we launched an initiative which is called Tech Women as a platform. And earlier, like before doing that, we were thinking, oh, come on, why are we doing that? Will we find the actually, what are we going to do with it? Like, let's propose to the public what we are going to do, somehow like that. We made the first meetup. We had 100 girls and ladies and professionals participating, and we understood that they can do everything by themselves. So they actually planned everything. They said, this is where we see the barriers. The barriers, what they mentioned as barriers is that they were not encouraged necessarily when they were in schools. Somehow they managed to get into the ICT career because, again, 10 years ago we launched an initiative called ICT Career Orientation, and either their mother or their father watched a movie or watched an interview or watched something and encouraged them to go for it. So it was not really a chosen thing because that was their vocation for. And they said that they would like to share the experience to other ladies, not necessarily as role models, but just share and encourage other girls that they can do it. They established a meetup, a regular meetup once a month, and they started receiving from men a lot of like, why is it only for women? And now we have 20%, I think, men attending the Tech Women's meetups. So it's actually possible, and it's a matter of them doing it. Related to women and men distribution of tasks, I also have 3 children. With my third one, I actually got to work the 3rd day after birth. And in a full-time job in 1 month. I'm not saying that's probably the best thing to do. Probably women should take the time to sit with their children sometimes, just because they grow too fast, and in several years you understand that they are just gone. But probably women do have more tasks on themselves, but it's not because that's how it is. It's because they choose to. And I agree it's possible. It's not really a problem to actually manage. We are probably the lucky ones who can manage it. Some may say they don't have a choice, but I think it's a matter of the inner self as well.
Okay, thank you. Another question we addressed is the diversity in IT industry. So what do you think about this, and is it important here, and why in IT sector? Do you have in your company, in your association, that diversity, how you can use it?
Well, I would be the first one to say that diversity is important. I mean, scientific research already shows that diverse teams are more productive. So if it would only be about the money, you would want to go for diversity. But then it also creates a lot of synergies, fun, inspiration if you work with people who are unlike yourself. Because if you keep seeing the same thing, it's not really innovative. What I can say about diversity is that I am also involved in an initiative called Women in HPC. And we started out really to advance the position of women in the HPC sector, but we are moving more and more towards making it a diversity initiative, not just about gender, but also about backgrounds. We have people now also who are in the LGBT community who want to make a safe space for them. We have people coming into our movement who have disabilities, but are still very capable of doing a lot of things. I mean, just because you are in a wheelchair doesn't mean you can't be the greatest programmer in the world. Yeah. I mean, this is kind of thinking of people like if something doesn't work, then nothing works. No, absolutely not. And we see that this is taking on momentum. That people are more and more thinking about diversity and more seeing and also reflecting upon themselves that they're like, wow, I have now worked with people who I've never worked with before, and it's such an inspiring experience.
Thank you. Christina, what experience about you in this domain? Does it help in your ENET development? So how diverse your network, your workers?
Actually, I think in ENET we have half of them are women and half of them are men. From the more technical positions, we have men. And I think it's not a bad thing. From, let's say, customer support point of view, we have a lot of women. It's really difficult to get men to apply, is one thing. In HITSA, in general, where ENET is part of, we have the problem that we don't get men to apply to, let's say, project managers. And we have a lot of women working in our, let's say, mother organization. And sometimes it's really interesting to see that sometimes we really wish when we have another vacancy that maybe, some men would apply as well, because we have turned into an organization with lots of women. So in Estonia, we have sometimes the opposite problems as well. But we don't think about diversity in a sense. If you apply for a job and if you're good, you get selected. It's not because you're a man or a woman. It all depends how well you perform on the interviews and how good you actually are. So and also because I think from the state point of view, we are not forced also to have this diversity, because we are so diverse. More than 10 years back, when I was working for a large Swedish bank, Swedbank, in IT as a project manager, we had women in all kinds of positions: system administrators, developers, project managers, department heads. I think even the Estonian unit was, the head was a woman. So women in Estonia have had always the chance to make it. It's like in our culture, because we are such a, let's say, a young country, more than 20 years now. So it is in the newspapers, but actually I don't see that there is a problem for a woman in Estonia to succeed. You only have to put in the hours, as well as the men do. So we are the lucky ones, I would say. So and it's also funny when I think about the diversity and women in technology. Then it's sometimes really hard from my own country point of view to understand how difficult it is in other countries. That there is really this glass ceiling, because I have never felt it. It has never been something for me. I know if I want something, then I have to work for it. So.
Thank you very much, Christina. Regarding you, Tiziana, do you feel that pluses of diversity, or maybe it's only make your problems in your work?
In the EGI Foundation, where I work, we have approximately 50% of men and women. I don't find diversity to be a problem, or because.
Do you find from them really that productivity and new ideas and so?
No, I don't think gender matters in this, at least in my experience.
Regarding that Marjolein said about different backgrounds, do you consider it's really helping your work?
No, I have to say, in my experience, for example, project managers applying were primarily men, so it's a bit different. We haven't experienced this gender separation in the various positions we have, and I've never seen any difference between male colleagues and females, so I don't find diversity to be mandatory for that. So it's good to have different backgrounds. Actually, I like a lot working in an organization with people from different countries. This is a kind of diversity which is really enriching, I think. Yeah, I have somehow a different experience. If I can just make a comment for Christina, when you said you have to believe and trust that you can do it, again, I think it's really different depending on the country. So again, I want to quote an example from Italy. I have an ICT friend, so after maternity she went back to her employer, and she was ready to take a full-time position, and the employer said, we don't trust you as a young mother to provide the continuity of work we demand for this position. So if you don't decide yourself to leave, we will make your life so difficult that you will leave anyway. So depends a lot on the country, and for example in Italy the work model is such that if you go for a part-time job, it's always regarded as not such a strong commitment to the job and the company you work for, especially in the private sector, and that's penalizing the people, and because women have part-time jobs,
especially
that's
women.
penalizing in the long run. So yeah, it depends a lot on the society, I think.
I would like to comment on part-time working in Estonia as well. If you come from maternity leave, since we're a small nation, there's always not enough workforce. Then I think even especially in IT sector, it's encouraged to come back to work earlier than you're usually staying at home with the child. And if it's really difficult, not difficult, but if for the organization the employees are really needed, then we will figure out all kind of schemes to get people to come back in. Having a child in IT sector in Estonia is really, I don't see a problem at all, because we encourage rather not to stay home that long than to come back. So it's really different. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think we're really lucky in that sense.
Anna, what's your experience about diversity in your company, as well regarding part-time jobs in Moldova?
Well, let's not look at our organization because 1 year ago we had 95% women managing an organization and 100% men board. So, like when you take, so things are changing. Now we have 2 women in the board and we have a 50-50, most probably men and women in the organization. But it was quite funny because they were like, "Anna, are you hiring only girls?" I'm like, that's what is happening. So we actually put some requests on. We want men to be hired or something like that. We were already
Cannot do
making
it.
fun.
It's
Yeah, well, we can. So it was a fun thing. Related to, I would like to point out a different aspect of diversity, not necessarily how good it is. Of course, it is good, but let's not put diversity before anything that relates to competence. So you need competences first, and then you need diversity. So in case you want to do your job and business well. So the point of view that I wanted to stress out was that in Europe, the women engagement into the ICT sector, I think it's like up to 20, I think up to. In Moldova, some companies have from 5 to 15. Like if you look at the ICT companies, it's not about how well and diversified it is, but there is another point of view that they're actually losing a part of employees that might do a great job for them. On the other hand, we have a big rate of, well, now it's not really big, but we do have a rate of unemployed people. So how does that fit? So I would put diversity important for the fact of actually getting the numbers of people that you want to have, of course with the necessary competencies and not just because it's
yeah, of course.
It's for the numbers. Another aspect maybe which is nice is because, well, in our organization it doesn't really matter whether you're a man or woman or anything. They're treated almost, well, equally, not almost, but equally. But in many cases it makes the office nicer and for the men.
Maybe discussions are going in another modality.
Not discussions, but like all the entourage and everything gets nicer. Like people clean their tables and come nicer to work, dressed and things like that. It's an indirect thing, but like that's also self-confidence to the other side. But I would never put competence above diversity. It's important to have diversity, but it's important to ensure that people who come, they are skilled enough to do the job.
And the second, there was question about part-time jobs here in Moldova. So, do you, as an employer, would like to have that moms who you take part-time or another?
Well, I would like moms to take the part-time. They don't want to take. They want to stay home in most cases. And that's true. Most moms want to stay home. At TechWell, we have, I think, 2 or 3 girls now who are pregnant. They are, like, one of them is on maternity leave, 2 of them are waiting, but one of them is already, hey, how can we improve the center and, like, put mom things like, for example, TechWell is really friendly to people with special needs, for example. We were thinking of creating a corner for either where moms can breastfeed if they want to bring their child. I don't care. Like if they want to feel happy and bring their children and they think that they can manage, that's fine. As long as they are happy with it, and most probably we will do that next year, so that they have all the needs if they want to come back to work and fulfill that. So as long as they feel happy
So you support
about it.
them?
Absolutely. Well, I have 3 children, so it would be weird not to support them to come back. But definitely, again, the work has to be delivered. If they say it's part-time, okay, part-time, but work to be delivered. If it's full-time, full-time. We don't really have full-time. We have results, so it sometimes may take 24 hours a day. But it's their decision. I will help them, and probably the team will help them with anything they can. Most IT companies are also very supportive in successful employees coming back, and they want them to be back, even on part-time or something. It's the other thing, that the women want to take the time and stay home.
Yeah, thank you. You had something
I
to
would
add.
just like to comment on something that I just hear in the between the lines of Christina. You said something about that when you hire people, it's about their skills and competences, not about their gender. I hear Tiziana say like project managers that apply to us are usually men. A lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of unconscious bias in job vacancies. Just a phrase like the applicant should not have a 9-to-5 mentality actually puts women off. Should not have a 9-to-5 mentality. You know, should not be somebody who is like strictly on the hours. There's research that we do in Women in HPC and in other places that actually shows that this puts women off the job, even though they would be the better candidate. And there's other such phrases and other such words. For instance, strong leadership skills. A lot of women, unconsciously, they don't even realize, they're like, oh, this is not for me. And they don't apply. So then to say it's only the competences that count actually is true, but you're pulling those competences from a limited pool because you're unconsciously already excluding other people with it's proven. It's really proven.
For us, it was difficult to get men on board, honestly.
Possibly
really
you have
difficult.
the unconscious bias the other way around. There's also phrases that put men off jobs. That just reading the vacancy, they will say, no, this is not for me, even though they have the right competences. And a lot of people don't realize this. So when people say, yeah, I only look at competences, I only look at if they are good for the job, I take the best for the job. I'm wondering, are you pulling that from the right pool of people? Or are you pulling those great people from a very small sample?
Thank you very much for your addition, and we have limited time, so thank you our panelists once again. Thank you very much. Thank you audience for listening to us, and hope it was useful for all of us.
Thank you for this great discussion. I've got a question for Anna as a representative of EP region. So if I understand correctly, your main point is if a woman wants it, she can succeed.
If a woman wants, she can succeed. I don't take into consideration the facts. Of course, there are a lot of social facts, a lot of other things that might happen, but it does take one's interest, and it doesn't matter whether it's a woman or a man to succeed. There are other factors that apply sometimes into succeeding or not, but it does matter that they would want to do it.
So my question is, so in my head, this is for very strong-willed people. How do we make sure that we make it a normality, that 50% of the ministry level, the board level, at the exec level, they're women? And how do we ensure that society, on the institutional, societal level, this is actually forced and it is judged if an organization or ministry or anything, any other sort of consortium, they don't have that sort of diversity?
But do you really want to judge anybody if they don't
Well, how do we ensure that
How do you ensure that in fashion 50% are men for sure? How do you ensure that in poetry or artists are 50% men for sure? When you're putting women into really specific places where earlier maybe it was men-driven, you should do the vice versa for the other areas where women are dominant, let's say, by default. Even like, how do you ensure, I don't know, there are many professions where, like, for example, sewing and part of that, where it's 99% women. How do we ensure that it's men there? Because men have the more, men had more privileges in choosing probably what they want to do. So it's more, I think, encouraging women to choose what they want to do rather than forcing anybody. You don't want to force anything. Things will go natural if the leadership skills are developed at the early stage in schools and somewhere else. And as I mentioned, they want to feel happy with it. They should be feeling happy with it. Otherwise, you're ending up spending your life doing whatever you don't want to. So I would not force. If you want to force, okay. I'm of a different opinion. I don't want to force things, ever.
Thank you. I'm not going to engage into this discussion. Maybe I speak later. Too. Thank
Okay,
you.
but I would definitely want to see more women if it's possible, but I don't want to force things.
I would like to thank you very much for this question, but we are out of time and hope you will have that discussion after during the coffee breaks. Jury, is the same to you, please.
I'm man, okay? You understand this. So it seems me you had 30 minutes or more discussion between the women on the board, okay? And we just listen it. And I have a provocative question. Marie Sklodowska-Curie got the Nobel Prize more than 100 years ago. Can you explain me what's happened since that time? I would expect that more, or do you think that the committee of the Swedish committee is against the women, that they didn't?
If I'm not mistaken, just 2 weeks ago, another woman got the Nobel Prize for chemistry, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
but,
not that it's not
since
happening.
that time, this question was arised, and it's discussed on many conferences and many places, and but no explosion of
No exposure of what?
of
Of
the
women in-
activities of the women in the high positions, I think so. Of course, there are many prime ministers and so on, but in many cases it's arised artificially, I'm afraid.
Can I just bounce that question back to you? What are you doing to make sure that women get Nobel Prizes? I'd like to just bounce the question back to you. What are you doing in your organization to make sure that women get Nobel Prizes?
Research. I'm doing the research, yeah.
And what are you doing to make sure that women are participating in your research so that they can also move up to more Nobel Prize?
I think we have no such high demands or high goals to get into the Nobel Prizes, because in IT it's quite difficult, I think.
Well, high achievement starts at the grassroots level, that's all I would say.
Well, most probably is that men want more than women, just in general. So they will most probably get more. It's not only about Nobel Prizes, but even if you look at the top billionaires and millionaires in the world, how many women do we have there? Just because they're happier with less, with better, they're more scientific in their philosophical way of being. And to be honest, a woman without a strong man is also not happening. So we're happening, but at least not in my case, probably. So yeah, it's not about why women don't take Nobel Prizes. It's about what do they want to do and what is actually. I do think that men are more goal achievers and higher goal putters, let's say, than women. And that's another thing that needed to be changed.
To round up this panel, thank you very much. I would like to. Sorry.
No,
one
honestly.
comment.
One short comment. First of all, I completely disagree with a statement that women might want to be less achieving in their life. I think that's complete BS. Second, and this goes to the men in the room and to the women in the room. We have identified that there's a moment in almost every woman's life when she takes a career break, which is the natural fact that we give birth, which, men haven't yet achieved to do. This is a moment when a woman needs the support of society, and this is the moment when every man in every organization needs to ask themselves, what do we do to reintegrate these women in a way that they can combine family, talent, and career? And this, very often, in many organizations, and our NRENs are one of those, and many ministries, This does not happen. Why not? Because these positions are full of men. They never had to wait, and they never had to have children. They never had to have the agony of having to travel when your kid's 3 years old and sick. We need women in positions of power that allow other women to be mothers and work and have their talent and their career. And until we achieve that, we need men to support us in doing that. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment, but just a small comment. I'm not saying women would want to achieve less. They're happier probably just because of the things that you mentioned, that they have a family to fulfill, they have children to grow, they have other things. They might be happier with less than men. And indeed, men do not have to wait. It might be a wrong perspective. I'm sorry, because I see you're shaking. But let's take it and look at that. How many women actually do want to achieve a Nobel Prize? How many women do want to achieve other things? How many of them do want? Sorry.
Once again, I would like to thank all of you and round up and to say to Jiri that you cannot, having all that background of centuries of one state and one organization where men dominate, you cannot expect in 100 of years completely another situation. It's the first point. And another one, I think it's a good point that we discussed here about diversity and about that men are different, women are different, and we need to make that good combination, and it's okay to be different and to achieve more together. So thank you very much for this participation in the panel, and hope to have next discussions during the coffee breaks. Thank you.